Hour of Normandy.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, by air, President Roosevelt has just announced. The attack...
On December 7th, 1941, Roosevelt's long campaign to rally the American people against fascism came to a shocking and unexpected end. At 1:50 p.m., the president was told that the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor. At 2:28, the attack was confirmed.
When I went upstairs, they had set up in the bedroom, and they were taking communication from what was going on. And Paul Watson came out, and he had this message, and he says, Mr. President, the whole damn Navy is gone. What in the hell are we going to do? And President and Mr. Hopkins, he said to Mr. Hopkins, he says, my God, how did it happen? Had his head in his hand and his desk like this. Says, how did it happen? Says, now I'll go down in history disgrace.
At a cabinet meeting that night, Labor Secretary Francis Perkins found Roosevelt deeply shaken. He was having actual physical difficulty in getting out the words that put him on record as knowing the Navy was caught unawares.
He looked drawn. His face was kind of palish-like and tired-like. There seemed to be a maze around him, just a blind sort of a fog around him. That when I looked at him, I got that impression from him, that he was in a fog. And he was so despondent over the fact, he says, we don't know what's out there.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
The Monday after Pearl Harbor was very, very solemn. Roosevelt had a press conference, and looking back on it, I'm astounded that he was able to cover up the appalling extent of the damage. We knew that there'd been a few ships bombed. We had no conception of that the whole Pacific Fleet had been bombed to hell. You know, Roosevelt said, we've suffered great losses and so on, but he didn't specify. You wonder that he could even sort of face anybody. So he handled that with great confidence.
4 days later, Germany too declared war on America. Now Roosevelt would have to wage war on both sides of the globe, across 2 oceans and 3 continents.
No man in history ever had a greater burden than Franklin Roosevelt did during World War II. He was leading the free world against Adolf Hitler, and it wasn't at all clear that we were going to win.
The early news was all bad. Disaster followed on disaster. The Japanese swept through Southeast Asia, pushing the Allies out of most of the Pacific. The Germans had advanced deep into Russia, threatening Moscow and Leningrad. Just 2 weeks after Pearl Harbor, on December 22nd, Roosevelt received a secret visitor at the White House.
We were at a regular press conference, always in the Oval Office, and so we all stormed in and were staggered to see sitting next to him in a chair was this rotund, pink Winston Churchill. And there was one of those sort of indescribable strange noises between a rustle and a gasp and eventually a cheer. And Roosevelt said, Mr. Prime Minister, get up there and let them see you. So Churchill got up, stood on the desk, and gave the great victory sign.
This time, the Prime Minister and the President met to plot military strategy. Their most important decision, who to fight first, the Germans in Europe or the Japanese in the Pacific. For nearly a month, they talked and planned. Churchill moved into the White House, just down the hall from Roosevelt. The daily rub of living side by side would test their friendship and the future of the alliance.
When Churchill came, it was like a cyclone had hit the White House. His whole schedule was totally out of whack with Roosevelt's. He, of course, loved to stay up late at night, drinking, smoking cigars, and Roosevelt would sit there with him until 2 or 3 in the morning, drinking, smoking cigars.
Before breakfast, he would pour him a tumbler of sherry, and he'd have that as his eye-opener. For lunch, he'd start drinking scotch and soda, and he'd drink scotch and soda until he'd take a nap. And at dinner, he had to have a champagne and 90-year-old brandy. Then he would go to work.
Roosevelt relished with all people the chance to break through decorum and have a one-on-one friendly relationship. He was always calling people by their first name even before he knew them. So I think that once he established with Churchill this kind of crazy informal relationship, he knew that it was a good omen for their friendship.
One will never know whether they would have been friends if there hadn't been the war, but maybe it needed a great cause to bring them together. And maybe it was a marriage of convenience, but then a lot of marriages of convenience are very successful, aren't they?